Hey everyone, how's it going? Papa Desi's here. We're going to be doing a podcast series, or at least I am for now. In the future, I'll definitely have some guests, most likely Joe Rogan, H3H3 said he might be joining, as well as a few others I have a feeling are probably going to make an appearance on the show. Anyways, we have a few topics to discuss and talk about in this podcast. Uh, f- Three topics I have written on the little image here. We have WandaVision, we have Star Wars, and we have GME. We have GameStop and also AMC and like meme stocks. So, WandaVision just ended. It's about a week and a half ago. Today's March 16th. WandaVision ended, I think, March 5th. I think that was the last time it aired. Or yeah, March 5th. And honestly, I think it was a really good show to be honest. Um, there was 9 episodes, and it started off very ambiguous. Like it began in the 1950s era with like a sitcom. By the way, when I'm going to be doing this podcast, I'm going to be doing other things. I'm not just going to be sitting here and like staring at myself talking because that'd be kind of weird. It's called the Procrastination podcast because I'm doing this podcast instead of doing homework, what I should be doing. Um, I like to make content. I like to make videos and like create things. And it's just about procrastination's the strongest enemy against that because when I want to create things, I make it a point not to actually do it because that's just how my mind is like functions, like especially it evolved from school because like my whole life I got school assignments. I never turned anything in late. Always did it perfectly on time. And I always like waited till the last minute though. Like I always got everything done, but I never did it until I knew it had to be done. Like I always completed it, but my mind kind of created the duration of time it took for me to actually do it. So I have to do like a Spanish assignment that's due tomorrow at 8:45 a.m. It's 9:16 p.m. right now. I know it'll probably take me like 25 minutes tops to do it. So I just wait like 25 minutes before I have to go to bed to actually do it instead of do it like early on when I probably should actually do it. I'm going to turn this echo on so I can hear my voice better and it's not muffled from the headset. Um, so yeah, I think that mindset is not helpful when it comes to making videos because I don't have a deadline for making videos or making like any sort of thing that doesn't necessarily have a deadline. This is just a hobby for me. I'm just doing it because I want to, not because I'll really get anything from it. However, since I don't actually have to do it, it's there's kind of a gray area for procrastination because I want to do it, but then I know I don't have to, and then I just don't do it. So it's kind of fucked up with how that works because it's a hobby and I should want to do it. So if I do want to do it, I should just do it. I'm getting way ahead of myself. So yeah, this podcast is going to be very all over the place because I'm just going to be talking about random topics and going off on tangents about my other personal experiences and just life in general. I don't want this podcast to be like straightforward with like one specific topic. I just kind of want it to be a conversation, like my points and my just thoughts on things. It's kind of weird because I'm like talking to myself because I'm just sitting in a room staring at the wall, just just talking to myself basically. But I feel like it would be a good outlet for myself as well as if there's some really bored person out there who um, will want to listen because right now I'm sitting at 30 subscribers on my YouTube channel. And I can't complain because I haven't actually attempted to grow the channel really. Like I I make occasional videos that are very low effort, to be honest. Um, and I had one video that has like 5,000 views, and it's a guide to how to boost a dungeon in WoW Classic. So, I mean, if I would have gone down that avenue and made more guides, I probably would have grown a lot bigger by this point. But then I just kind of stopped uploading, and I never really made it a point to actually create content. Um, but yeah, going back to WandaVision, I think it was very well done. I know a lot of fans got ahead of themselves with theories like about Mephisto and the Fantastic Four, the X Men and Magneto showing up. I don't. The show was never meant to have those many elements added onto it because it would have completely um, suppressed the actual meaning of why that show existed. Because the show was about Wanda and her grief and how she will deal with her loss of vision and her brother and just kind of her current state and her mental state. That's what the show wanted to convey. And if they added X-Men, Fantastic Four, Mephisto, it just would have been too much at that point because they already had a lot going on for it. Like they had what was going on in the hex, like that whole mysterious beginning, which I loved because it was just super abstract and ambiguous, and you had to kind of guess what was going on. Because usually Marvel platforms, usually Marvel shows and movies. This is the first show, but Marvel movies in particular are very straightforward. They have the protagonist very simply is a good guy. It's more or less not morally grave with the protagonist. Um, they have the bad guy. It's super predictable because they have Act One, Act Two, Act Three. Act One is building the characters up, showing what's going on. Act Two is like a conflict rising, like things are starting to play, you know. And then Act Three is like the conflict and the resolution, more or less. But this one, I guess if you look at it as a whole through 9 episodes, it kind of had that beginning, middle, and end. Like, especially in the end, it was very generic, to be honest. However, the way it got there was definitely abstract and out of the ordinary for any Marvel property, which I really respected for WandaVision. It wasn't afraid to just be completely different from any other Marvel like movie, and it achieved developing these characters so much better because Wanda and Vision initially were like C characters in the Avengers. They were pretty much in the background. They were compelling, they were good characters, but they just weren't developed and they weren't given any time to really be relatable or for the audience to actually understand why they're in love, like what's going on there, like what powers do they really have, what's happening unless you read the comics and you knew all this context already. WandaVision allowed us to really understand how these characters came to play. So I really respect that show for making that change and just making that step into this new direction of what Phase Four will be. Because there's just going to be so much more potential now with Disney Plus and all of these shows coming out, like Falcon and the Winter Soldier is coming out in 3 days on Friday, March 19th. So that'll be really, really interesting. I'm looking forward to watching that. Um, and then with Star Wars, that's also on Disney Plus. New shows are going to be coming out on Disney Plus, I should say. Um, the Bad Batch is coming out on May 4th of this year, and I'm really looking forward to that show too. The last season of the Clone Wars was fantastic. It was everything that I wanted Star Wars to be. It was in one show. Like the Bad Batch arc of season 7 of the Clone Wars was really good. It was really interesting seeing these mutations of Jango Fett, these different types of clones, with their own special abilities and their own personalities, like interacting with each other. And I'm sure this Bad Batch as their own standalone series will be will just as good, if not better, than the first arc of season 7 where they were in, because it's going to be dealing with the Empire, especially the rise of the Empire, like right near the conception, right after Sidious took control from transferring the Republic into the Empire. Like that'll be just really interesting to see, just that transition phase, all of the little like intricacies of the government and how they're changing, and maybe even showing like civilians during this time, because you never really see the little guy during all this, like, unless it's the protagonist, like Luke on Tatooine. You he was like poor, and it was like a working class family, but they never really showed much more of that during that specific time. Like in the Clone Wars, it showed like the Undercity of Coruscant. Like it showed these different classes, but I don't necessarily think it really delved deep into that for the era of the Empire. Um, Correct me if I'm wrong, but it showed Luke obviously growing up in Tatooine, very poor world during the Empire. But other than that, I can't. Maybe Han Solo, his prequel movie, I guess. But it just doesn't really show much of what they thought of the Empire. It was mostly like a regime where I don't think it was very. They didn't necessarily like the Empire, but I don't think they necessarily looked at it as like an evil, um, like structure, power structure for what it was, because no one knew like the Sith ruled the Empire, or like that the government was under control of a much darker force. It was all very concealed in the upper like power of the Empire. Like no one knew Palpatine was like, I don't know, like even what he looked like, because I think in like Star Wars Rebels there was even like holograms of Palpatine, like what he looked like in Episode 3, like just not like electric melt skin or whatever. Like he just was his regular face, gray hair. So they tried to show that he was like um not disfigured, I guess. So it's very interesting just to see how they dealt with all these things during that beginning of the Empire, and how the clones played a role too, because obviously the chip controlled them to kill the Jedi. It wasn't their actual own choice. It was a control. It was a program in their brain. But I wonder how long that programming really lasts in the long run. Like 2 years later. Think about 2 years later after Order 66 is done. Are the clones still completely like in that mindset that the Jedi were treasonous, and that like they're like not mentors necessarily, but like colleagues, like the Jedi were, that they grew like that they grew friendships with during the Clone Wars? Do they still look back on that with like um I can't even think of the word, just like not hatred, because they didn't hate the Jedi from the Order 66. They just thought they were treasonous and they had to kill them. I'm going on a tangent here, but like, did they do they still think that the Jedi were bad, or do they start to realize like, shit, why did I kill my Jedi like commander? Like, why did I do that? So I think there's gonna be like a change in the mind of the clones. They'll start to realize that they probably did something wrong. And I think for the Bad Batch specifically, I don't think they were chipped, because I just don't see why they would be, being how independent they were and how kind of disconnected from the actual clone army they were. I want to see what they thought of Order 66 as well. And I mean, it's definitely going to happen. I don't think the Bad Batch are going to be antagonists throughout this series. They're going to be working for the Empire in the beginning, but I think they're going to realize that the Empire is super corrupt, and how they manipulated all of their brothers to kill the Jedi, all for like a political gain. I think they're going to rebel against the empire, and they're gonna probably do they're gonna do something. They're gonna try to leave the empire because I knew they were in the trailer. They were doing a little like jobs for them, but I think it'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to the show. I can only speculate at this point because it's just a very ambiguous time during like an ambiguous era of Star Wars. We haven't really talked about what happened right after Episode Three, like the first like days and months leading up to that point. I think the closest we really got to that in canon, other than books and novels, I can't in like comic books, I can't say anything to that because I haven't really read any. But Jedi Fallen Order, the game, took place 5 years after Episode Three, so I think that was like the closest big like canon title that took place closest to after Episode Three. Correct me if I'm wrong again. I think I just think it'll be very interesting to see what happens, and I'm definitely looking forward to it, and to also see how this could potentially tie into the Kenobi series. I'm really looking forward to the Kenobi series, especially since Hayden Christensen is actually reprising his role as Anakin and Darth Vader. Um, it'll be. I'm just I'm just looking forward to all these titles coming out. I'm so happy that there's so many announcements for all these new shows, Marvel and Star Wars. Um, Disney Plus is really like it's really it's going strong, especially during this time. It's really impressive that they already filmed all of this stuff before COVID most of the time. Like WandaVision was filmed probably mid to end of 2019. Just the fact that they had all of these titles and series already filmed out to release in 2021, a complete year after COVID, and during COVID still, it's really impressive, and it just goes to show that they still have a lot of stuff up their sleeve and a lot of good titles and more that are planned as well that they can't necessarily film yet. Um, and also going on to the third topic, of course we have GME. Um, I am a very new investor to just the market in general. I do not have an immense like knowledge of this. I'm all still but a learner at this point. Wait, I don't know if that even made sense. I'm all still but a learner. Does that mean I'm not a learner and I'm like all everything except that? Okay, I'm still a learner is what I meant to say. And I've been going on Reddit on Wall Street bets, that's the whole thing and the GME subreddit and it's just it's fascinating what's happening because it's happening again. Well, let me just go back if you aren't aware of what's happening with the GameStop stock, I'll just give a little bit of context. Um so let's go back to like 2019, about 2 years ago. GameStop, if you know what it is, it's a retail store that sells video games and consoles and like controllers and some other stuff. It's a video game retailer, and they haven't been doing very good lately. Their sales have been going down. Obviously, it's a long running joke that they'll give you like 50 cents for like an Xbox that you exchange. Like they'll just give you a very small amount of money because you can trade stuff in and get money for it. Um, but yeah, lately, or sorry, let me go back to 2019 where I was. The business wasn't doing well. The stock for GameStop was incredibly low. It was like $4 or $5 a share or something. And someone known as DFV or Deep Fucking Value, um, as well as Roaring Kitten. I mean, shit, I don't know for sure. But he started doing some research about this GameStop stock, and decided that, and found evidence that all these hedge funders were shorting the GameStop stock. And what that means is these hedge funders will borrow like tons of shares of GameStop at like $5, and they get all of the money for all of these shares, and in hopes that the stock price of GameStop or any business that they're shorting from will go down. So let's say they take two shares at $5. So they get $10. And then let's say the share of GameStop goes from $5 to $4. So now they still have to pay that money back through shares. So they borrowed two shares and got $10 from that, but they have to give those two shares back eventually. And since it's only $4 a share, they only have to pay back $8. So they take $10 initially, have to pay back $8 after it went down, and they just keep the $2 because that's their money. That's the difference between those two stock prices. And basically, these hedge funders do that at an immensely high scale. They short, they borrow and short thousands, if not millions of shares. And they, in hopes of it going down, so they can keep tons of money. Just free money, but it's really shitty because it pushes the business down. You're pretty much taking money from the business, giving them less money, um, and it does not help the business one bit. And these hedge funders were trying to bankrupt GameStop. And basically, what happened is a lot of people on Wall Street bets, not collectively decided because everyone on that subreddit are all independent investors. But with the knowledge and the research that DFV gave, um, they all individually decided to invest into GameStop because they knew that these hedge funders were shorting tons and tons of shares. So they invested tons of money into GameStop. The stock price went up a little bit, because retail investors, there's a lot of retail investors, which are just everyday people, working class, that can invest and don't necessarily have millions of dollars, but they have like a few thousand, like maybe $100,000 in the stock market. Um, so with that extra money, the stock price of GameStop, steadily went up. But that means that the hedge funders have to pay back those shares that they borrowed at that higher rate. So they were having to pay back tons and tons of money, which means they had to put money back into the stock, which made it exponentially grow. It went from like $5 a share all the way to almost $500 a share for a very small like moment. It went to like 480, excuse me, it went to like $480 a share, which is insane to happen to a business like GameStop in such a short amount of time. But this led to, I have to have a drink of water. But this led to just tons of outrage from the media and all these hedge funders because what happened is it was a very significant transfer of wealth from the ultra elite rich to the working class retail investors. And tons, billions of dollars were lost from these hedge funders. Citadel, or I believe it was either Citadel or Melvin, which are two hedge funders, lost like 53% of their like money, which is crazy knowing how much money these funds actually have. They have billions of dollars, tons of money. Um, and there was a lull. This all happened at the end of January, right to like February 1st, and the stock dropped. It plummeted right away. The hedge funders like, all right, we can't deal with this. We're pushing the stock down like as much as we can. So they probably shorted even more stocks just to push it down to $40 a share. And it stayed at $40 a share for like 3 weeks. Um, but near the beginning of, or the end of February and the beginning of March, it started going up again. Um, Let me just grab a graph real quick just so I can see exactly what it was because I don't want to. I mean, I'm not giving like perfectly accurate information, but I just want to be a little bit more specific. So yeah, February 24th, it was like $40 a share, $45 a share. And at the end of that day and to the beginning of February 25th, it shot up to $138 a share. And then it shot up by the middle of February 25th, it shot up to $177 a share. Um, because what happened is the hedge funders still owe tons and tons of money that they don't even have back into GameStop because they shorted so many shares. They borrowed more shares than there even are like of a physical GameStop shares. There can only be like 50 million physical shares of GameStop, and these hedge funders borrowed. I don't know the exact number, but it was more than 50 million shares. They owe an insane amount of money. And basically, people are speculating that there's going to be another squeeze, which means that the price of the stock will shoot up. Like it's like in a very short amount of time. That's what a squeeze is. It's just a large increase in the price of a share rather quickly. And since these hedge funds owe so much more money than they can even put in because GameStop doesn't have that many shares, they can't cover these shares unless um, there really isn't a very good opportunity for them to even cover these shares unless the business goes bankrupt to like $0 a share, which at this point will never happen because there's so many apes diamond handing and holding these shares, and it's just it's not good for the hedge funders, but it's good for the retail investor, for the whales like these large institutions that aren't necessarily hedge funds but are still investing in the company in hopes that there will be a squeeze. Because there is a um, let me look it up real quick. Because the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation um, are they insure the hedge funds for how much money they have to pay. Since these hedge funders have to pay a ludicrous amount of money, maybe going into the trillions, the DTCC is insured, can insure these hedge funders up to, I believe, like $40 trillion, like some just ridiculous amount of money. And I'm sure they're trying very hard to find some sort of loophole not to pay this money because if they do, these hedge funders are just going to go bankrupt, and the government is going to end up having to print off tons and tons of money. Um, but if the money isn't covered, if these shares aren't covered that they shorted, uh, the DTCC will have to pay all of the money that the hedge funders can't, because the hedge funders are going to go bankrupt because they can't afford that much money. They'll have to liquidate all of their assets and sell them, or they're probably already preparing by putting money into offshore accounts. Not financial advice, by the way. Like all of this is just all speculation at this point. But if this does come into fruition, if the DTCC has to intervene and uh, pay off for all these uncovered shorts, the price of a GameStop share, like it's not even a meme at this point. It could shoot up to like $100,000, like start like 100,000 to even $1 million a share. It sounds ridiculous. Like it literally sounds like, how could this happen? This would never happen. But it's completely, like, I don't want to say completely because this is all speculation. No one knows for sure. Not financial advice to invest or anything. Not financial advice. However, it could potentially shoot up very high. And people who even have one share could could get a lot of money for that if the squeeze does in fact happen. If it does, it might not. Um, right now, the hedge funders are really trying to attack the GameStop share. They're shorting even more. They're just putting themselves even deeper right now. They're like every day they're taking out another 750,000 shares to borrow. They're just adding on at this point to what they need to pay back. Um, there was a really good analogy. It's like when you are trying to pay off your credit card debt with another credit card. Like it temporarily solves the problem, but then you put yourself in even more shit because you're maxing out another credit card just to pay off another one. Like it's just like I don't know how much longer they can do this. They have so much power. Like they really do. They could easily like bribe legislation to change a law or something. Like it's really corrupt and it's really screwed up. Like how much control these people really have over the government and over us as retail investors. It's really scary and it kind of, but it's very eye opening because it just goes to show like who's who really has the power here, what money can really do. It's it's definitely perspective changing. Right now, the GameStop share is sitting at $201 a share. Um, and Wednesday of March 10th, 2021, the GameStop share was almost at $350 a share. It got up to like $345 a share. And I was just watching it tick. It just kept going up. It did not stop going up. It was just steady growth. And these hedge funders are freaked out because they shorted the shit out of GameStop. They dropped the price so hard. It went from $345 to like $170 in 20 minutes. Like almost 40% loss. It just boom. And the market had to halt like 6 times or something like that because if a stock shoots down or shoots up, and so by so much in such a short amount of time, the market automatically halts that share from being sold or bought for 5 minutes or something like that, just because it's super volatile. And in this, what they were trying to do here, at this point in the game, it's super psychological. These hedge funders are just trying to get as many retail investors as possible to sell so they can buy those shares back. Like they're trying to save themselves like that, but it's just it's not enough for them. And also, there's so many people who are just who are just holding on to this share. Like they're not gonna sell just out of pure principle to screw over the hedge fund. Because at this point, these hedge funders are super corrupt and they're just manipulating the market because they have so much money. And all these people are standing strong, looking straight dead into the eyes of the hedge funders and just saying, no, I'm not selling. Like, I don't even care if it drops to $0 a share. I'm not selling. And people are very, um, what's the word for it? Just very, not stubborn because, I mean, it is stubborn in a sense, but just standing up for what they believe in. Because hedge funders, most of them don't have the best intentions. that's that's the most generous way of putting it. Because I don't want to slander people, but um, it's purely fascinating to see what's going on right now. I have a few shares in GameStop, and the best way to look at it is to put money that you're willing to lose into the stock because it could potentially not. This could not never squeeze. It could go down to $0 a share. It's a simple risk. I have some money in there that I'm willing to lose, but I don't care because it's for a good cause. And I believe in this movement as a personal investor. This is not financial advice, um, but I personally like the stock. And there's also the future of GameStop is actually looking very promising for what it's worth. Besides all this crazy stuff going on with the hedge funds and shorting and stuff, because the the GameStop original design itself is becoming obsolete very quickly because it's just a physical store with like trade in stuff, and it's just it's becoming obsolete in this day and age of just online trading, online purchasing. So they're transitioning GameStop itself to a more e-commerce based market. They're closing off a lot of physical stores, and people are saying that the business is going bankrupt because it's selling all these stores off. But in reality, it's just transitioning to a more online based market. Um, they're definitely going to see more success that way. They're going to be a top tier online retailer for video games. And that's pretty cool because they're also partnering with Ryan Cohen, which is who is the CEO of Chewy, which is a online like pet food website that my girlfriend and I use for our cat and dog for treats and food and like prescriptions too. It's a really good business, and they're super successful. Ryan Cohen is incredibly successful with his Chewy business, and he will be working with GameStop to work on their own online infrastructure, which should be very promising in the future. Um, so I expect the GameStop stock itself to be successful long term just because of that. Not even because of this short term incredible volatility due to just the war between retail investors and hedge funders right now, which who knows what could happen at this point. It's all speculative, but it's looking very promising, and the hedge funders themselves, yeah, are looking to be very desperate during this time. It's very notable in the subreddits. There's a lot of shills, which are kind of like people that are trying to downplay GameStop and say it's gonna fail, just spreading FUD, fear, uh, something doubt. I can't even think of the acronym what it stands for. Like fear. Oh, it's the middle word. Uncertainty and doubt. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. People are spreading that on the subreddit, trying to get people to become demoralized about their position on GameStop to sell, which is really sad. It's just they're trying every tactic in the book to try to get people to sell so they can get those shares back. But they're already really far in the bucket, or like 6 feet under this point. They're just burying themselves even deeper. Um, and I'm always going to be looking at this until something happens. Like uh, I'm glued to this stock right now and to the subreddit, GME and Wall Street Bets. It's just very fascinating and very interesting because there's a lot of people that are making due diligence posts. They're called DD with just very in-depth mathematical sound data that is just factual to show why this is happening and what could potentially happen in the future with just very sound data, um, and very well thought out predictions from people who are more or less educated that know what's going on. Although it is a meme that everyone's an ape and eats crayons and isn't the brightest, doesn't have a wrinkle on their brain, not even one wrinkle. It's all smooth. It's just I just love what's going on. I love the community because it's just people just standing up to corporate greed. Nothing better than that. It's definitely going to be a movie. It's definitely going to be in like the history books to come, economics lessons, and yeah, I'm just optimistically cautious about what's going to happen. If it goes sideways and plummets, so be it. I'll lose my money. That's fine. Um, and if it shoots up and squeezes, the mother of all squeezes, hell yeah, I'm buying a Tesla, to be honest. But who knows? It's all in the air. it's crazy, and it just changes your perspective of money, what money even is, who controls the economy, what the market even is, what's the difference between the stock market and these businesses themselves. It just raises a lot of questions just about finance in general and just the conception of money and how corrupt it can really be. It's definitely making me more interested to go to school to study finance. I know, I know it's probably a hypocritical approach because if I go into that field, I could potentially like be in the position that I like am against right now. I don't want to be a hedge funder, but I do find this whole topic incredibly interesting. Um, yeah, this is definitely the biggest part of the podcast because it's just crazy to think about what's going on with GME, AMC as well. Like it's not even just GameStop. It's AMC theaters. For a little bit, it was like BlackBerry, or no, it was Nokia and BlackBerry, I think. Um, but right now, the top two are GameStop and AMC. AMC was actually looking really good yesterday. It like went from like $11 a share to 14 at one point. Um, just really good performance for that. While the same day, GameStop was just slowly declining and just going down. Um, it's really interesting to see that inversely proportional relationship between those two stocks because um, usually those two stocks are intertwined, um, and they both react with each other. If one plummets, the other plummets. If one goes up, the other goes up. And I think it was very coordinated. Um, it's very conspiratorial. Is that a word? I don't know. There's a lot of conspiracies going around about how much manipulation these hedge funders are really doing right now. And I think a big theory about what happened yesterday is that these hedge funders um, were shorting the hell out of GameStop. I think it's proven that they borrowed 750,000 shares to short yesterday. And they were just trying to plummet GameStop and pump up AMC just to get people to leave GameStop and realize to think that they're on the wrong boat and that they should go hop on AMC instead to sell all their GameStop stock and to switch to AMC. I think that was definitely one of their strategies yesterday because again, they will do excuse me, they will do whatever it takes to get you to sell your share of GameStop. They're going to do whatever it takes. They're going to try to hit you mentally. They're going to try to hit you in your wallet by plummeting the stock because, excuse me again, jeez, because just seeing your money and seeing your profit just plummet in an instant to lose like $600 instantly, it's definitely demeaning and it's not a good feeling whether you're a millionaire or not. Seeing that much money instantly disappear from your gross like worth is demoralizing, and they want you to feel that, and they want you to cut your losses and to sell to feel a little better, I guess. But yeah, at this point, we just gotta, or me as a individual investor, I am going to stay strong. I'm going to hold on to my shares no matter what. If it drops down to $0, so be it. I'm holding on and I'm never letting go. I'm standing up for what I believe in, and I believe that these hedge funders still owe a ton of money, and it's money that they don't really deserve. Hold on, I have to cut.